Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I am your host, Solaris BlueRaven. My wonderful guest tonight is Dr. Richard Allen Miller. And Richard, we actually had a little more information there on that question. It was
Good.
about the 5G. Yeah, he says it's a cellular tech, the next stage from 4G, the new cell phone. And it's to replace the 4G with global coverage. And they'll be putting towers up even more due to the short range.
Yeah. That's killing the bees, and other things like that because of the electromagnetic fields that it generates. It's
Yeah,
terrible.
toxicity. Yeah, well, that's what he was saying. Apparently, the cows here were having issues. So
I appreciate them researching that for me because that's something I didn't know about, and I do appreciate that.
Yeah, you might want to write an article on it later on down the road. I mean, not that if you have extra time to do so, but
I presume that 5G stands for gigahertz, probably.
That's what it sounds like. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Rowe, but
Well,
yeah.
gigahertz is a frequency band, yeah.
Yeah, well, I can imagine. I mean, how much toxicity can we take is really the question. It seems to me like we're constantly bombarded.
Yeah, the 5 gigahertz, the synthetic telepathy is 0.3 to 3 gigahertz. And cell phones started at 4 gigahertz, and that means that they're very, very close to our sensory motor input, and are probably why they are now being outlawed children under 7.
Really?
Yeah, the skull of the child is so thin that first ring of radiation is toxic to children.
Right.
I mean, to an adult, it's not nearly as bad because of the prone plate, but for a child, it's like terrible. And,
well, if you're, let me ask you real quick though, but if you're exposed to something like synthetic telepathy 24 hours a day for 15, 20 years, even by 3.3 gigahertz, is that what you're referencing? Doesn't that eventually have
I'm saying that 0.3 to 3 gigahertz causes the temporal lobes to heat up and ring. And then what you can do is heterodyne audio onto that, and it bypasses the ear.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because it seems like there's an awful lot of toxicity right now. That it's just to a point where what would you suggest for shielding?
I would suggest moving away into the country, away from cell
off planet.
Go to a place where there's no coverage. That's a good place to be.
I'm telling you, there's no place to run. Where are we going to go?
Well, that's exactly why there's been such an outcry against this technology.
Well, the thing is, they could switch it. They could change the frequency or alter the modulate the
wave. That is correct, but they chose not to do that. It was a guy in Motorola that first came up with that audio band, and what he did, he was on Mike Wallace, 60 Minutes, more than 6 times, the 6th time, right after he died of brain tumor. And he said that Motorola chose that bandwidth upload because it had an LD50 ratio. There were too many people in the world.
Wow, that's terrible.
Yeah, the whole concept of that is just terrible.
Well, I think that's the same thing with the cell phones now. I think pretty much about 10 years from now, people will probably have more tumors in their brains, I would assume, if they're not doing something about that.
Well, you don't have to worry about it because Fukushima will take care of it as extinction of all life event, ELE event.
Yeah, pick your poison, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that really what it is? Which way do you want to go?
That's why we're having an epoch. It's time for a recycle because when we do it wrongly and with the wrong intent.
I think you're right, but it could have gone right. The saddest part of all of this is we could have changed it for the better. Just like Tesla, we could have had the free energy. We could have done it for the better.
I look back at the Greek history and their concept of technology dealing with metaphor and the arts. And for me, that was possibly one of the more higher exalted forms of man. Socrates, Plato.
Right. Yeah, those were classics. I mean, back then, the philosophers, the mathematicians, the mystics.
They were different than we are today.
Well, I think that also they weren't being. Yeah, and also they weren't being interfered with crazy satellites and all sorts of other stuff that's going on. Think about how pure the energy must have been.
Things like the Vermana and who knows.
That's true, but that's a different type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Technology has many, many pieces. I look at the dolphin and the orca, and these have advanced technology. The orca will blow a bubble of sonoluminescence and make rings and play with it like a toy. And that's called fission. That's the work that they're doing now at MIT, and that's what the dolphins destroys them. So, technology has many faces, and I don't think we're that at all.
No. So what do you know about the Vimana?
Oh, Hindu mythology. Well, it's talked about in the throne chariot of God in Ezekiel's vision. It is a face center cubic hexagonal fluid. I've actually written about that. It's in your mind's eye when you envision a specific sacred geometry, you cause resonance to occur that manifests into the physical world. The 8th article that I'm writing now for my non-local mind book will deal with how sound and movement, like dance, change space-time. The whirling dervish and the Hopi ghost dance and Mukumba, Obi-men dancing Mukumba, can change space-time with body movement. There is a dancer called Gabrielle Roth. She does jazz, freeform, and is demonstrating this very concept. Before her was Kate Bush, and before Kate Bush was a Kenneth Anger and his Magic Lantern series, in magic. I think there's technologies that we've forgotten. That the sound part is in the old Bible, the Sefer Yetzirah, or Book of Formation, and how sound relates to words and the Word of God, and to say certain words in a certain way causes things to change.
True.
That is technology that we see in cymatics, and that relationship of sound on a drum of water. And I'm guessing that technology is the way the multiverse.
It is. I agree with you. Well, it reminds me of the Merkaba, because what you're describing, like the Vimana, reminds me of the Merkaba.
Yes, Merkaba. That is
the
correct.
Vehicle of
that
Light.
Is,
and I'm very familiar with that one.
Yes.
Have you been to the Great Pyramid?
No, I haven't been to the pyramid.
You need to go. I can't believe you haven't been. Of all the people, I think you should go.
In North Dakota, we have pyramids everywhere. In fact, I did on the History Channel recently about the Colorado River and the archive that they found, the Ancient Egyptian Museum on the Colorado River.
Is that right? Can you elaborate on that? I didn't hear about that.
Oh, well, it's on the History Channel. This is doing fact now. They did one made on the great giant skull that they found. I think that's Nephilim. They found in Pennsylvania in the 1800s, and they have pictures of it. It went to the Smithsonian, and then disappeared. And it was archaeological find, and I had an explanation on what happened on that. But there were other kinds of humans on Earth. They are unearthing giant skulls and other parts of the body parts, giants, all over the world, China and Russia.
That's what I've heard. So when were you on the History Channel? Can we look for that episode?
Yeah, I don't know when they played it. They filmed me last year in Medford, Blue Room.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll have to look out for that one.
I'm on everything now, I guess. I don't so many things I'm doing. The one on the Columbia River was apparently a museum for the Egyptians when they were looking for copper for the capstone on the pyramids.
Are you talking Columbia River or Colorado River? Which one?
The Colorado. Yeah.
Okay.
The Colorado River. Yeah. The big one. And down there's a section down there that's closed off because of the discovery. And in that they discovered a golden Buddha. Now that means Buddha, the real Buddha. And this is interesting. I don't know what it all means, except that somehow history has been rewritten.
It certainly has, re-edited and censored and everything else associated with that. Yeah, and I think the private investors have taken a lot of these ancient artifacts, and that's very concerning, of course, that instead, I think they destroyed a lot of those big skeletons, if I'm not mistaken. I think the Smithsonian destroyed the giants, the skeletons of the giants.
Yeah, my take on that was interesting. The one in Pennsylvania, basically, at that time, there was a Methodist minister who lost his entire congregation to that Mormon, what was his name, Joseph Smith. And Joseph Smith went out west with this Methodist congregation. And that minister spent the next 20 years dogging him, trying to get his flock back. And it was his two sons that formed the Smithsonian and started the Smithsonian. And my guess is they were trying to validate their father by dropping that skull out into the Atlantic Ocean somewhere. That's my guess. That's how it works, like that. You know, there'll be points in history where somebody is trying to change it to protect or to verify or validate something like their father. So that Mormon church was formed on a close encounter.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's just, you know, I don't know. I wasn't there. I can speculate with my knowledge base, but ultimately, who knows? That's why they did it.
Well, there's so many pieces to put together right now. I think everybody has a piece of the puzzle. So we just sit around and try to put together.
That's why we communicate and network. That's the purpose of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the positives with the internet. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Robin Falcoff just said that she's listening to us. So.
And Dr. Falcoff, we love Robin Falcoff. Hello, Robin.
Just got a text message from her.
Yeah, she's wonderful. She's a night owl tonight. That's late for everybody. Appreciate you tuning in.
Yeah. Well, pretty late for me. I'm usually in bed by now.
Are you okay? Because I can always open the phone. Okay.
Oh, thank you. You're so no. I'm good.
You know, I spoil you when you're on my show usually.
Yeah.
I never crack the whip on you, do I? I'm pretty nice.
Well, I'm trying to be a good boy.
No, you do fine. Well, I wanted to dive back into your occult world and the mystical world that you're so adept in. And I think we talked a little bit about the death experience, and insofar as you kind of touched on your article that you're writing. And is there anything else you want to relay? Also, you know, the concept of death, in my opinion, is about manifestation. In other words, what you believe is what you're going to see when you go. It's basically based on reality.
But what this world is right now is a single drop of water that falls and hits a drum of water. And what happens next is that drop of water pops back up in the air again. But this time, it is no longer a drop of water. It is a cavitation ball, exclusion zone water that has trapped the medium in which it's fallen. This medium, trial by fire. Just sent us both a little heart. Thank you.
Oh, that's sweet. Do you ever you said you've had past life regression, right? Or
yes, I've tried to remember what I was in past lives. But I have to always remember that past lives is kind of illusionary in that there is only the moment. In this universe, time is not real. There's only the moment. That instinct, when you have 6 things in front of you and you look at the one as being very significant, the others are not interesting, but that's really important. That is a future timeline talking to your moment. And if you listen to that, that changes your path, literally. And that's what's happening to me and how I'm changing my mood. I am paying more attention to my instincts.
That's excellent. Yeah, your radar system or your psychic radar, we want to call it. I think love is really focal too. It's just what's in the heart, and consciousness is very, very significant. Because it seems to me. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, no, the heart has its own resonances. Right now, I'm speaking of the mind. And the mind is your upper brain, and then the lower brain would be the enteric nervous system. That's your first brain. And if you listen to that brain, it will literally change everything. The upper brain, the one we associate with the mind, is basically there to make all your beliefs true. Like your heart. The Greek, as we were talking earlier, had actually 4 words for love. There was eros, philo, agape, and telema. The love of will, telema or philema, the love of will was your purpose here on earth. That's why Crowley said, do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. That meant that the most important form of love was your purpose here on earth. It superseded everything.
Mm-hmm. And of
That's
course, the
why,
purpose hopefully is not insidious. It's hopefully beneficial not only to yourself but probably for other people. I would say, right?
yeah, hope was the last evil in Pandora's box.
Mm,
So it's not
interesting.
a gift of the gods. It's
Uh,
how you choose to use your toolbox, and that's why you
right.
have choice.
Yeah.
That place allows you evolution and to become more.
Right. So you were affiliated with Crowley's order, then, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
but a teacher can only take you as far as they themselves have gone. And it's always important to remember that Crowley died as a drug addict in Hastings.
Mm-hmm.
And so back then, opiates were not seen as they are today. We did not have full knowledge of them like we do today. And Tombstone comes to mind, and the way that one of the brothers' wives was an opiate user and was an addict. And we didn't even have definition of what addiction was back then, like we do today. So that clarity of definition often precludes how far a teacher's been.
Right. Well, it seems to me like they always claimed how powerful he was, yet, as you said, he didn't. I think he kind of died broken.
Intellectually, his power was extremely intellectual. He would be, if I were casting a movie on him, I would choose, what would be that little guy's name? Can't think of his name now. I was looking for help here and I can't.
Well, what has he been in? Give me a hint.
Well, it was Norman Mailer battling. Who was Norman Mailer battling all the time? That was that little guy. Is in movies.
Oh no, offhand.
I'm trying. He was Norman Mailer. Battled him. They were both gay. He would say the, not the. It's the. You know. Trying to think of his name now, but he would have been. Crowley was a intellectual snob, and was brilliant in terms of grasping the essence of something, and that's where his strength of power lay, in his intellect. And back then, you have to realize it was all Victorian, so he would be in your face like putting a 666 on his forehead.
For shock value. Basically, wasn't it just for shock value? Really, it's a psychological war more than anything, right?
Yeah, and
Truman Capote.
Yeah, Truman Capote. That's who I was.
Robin said she's good.
Yeah, Truman Capote would have been whom I would have cast as Aleister Crowley.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, that would be whom I would cast as a perfect Aleister Crowley. Truman Capote would have been like the way he was. Yeah, that would have been a perfect Crowley. Crowley was also larger in stature, but he spoke very similar to. I have audio of Crowley. I have and so that's my imagination going.
Well, let me ask you something. He did a lot of strange things, kind of dark and twisted with animals, etc. And when you tune into that as a group, a collective, in a coven or whatever, don't you pull in his karma or his energetic, all the things that he's done that maybe are not appropriate? And wouldn't that carry on into your energy field, or do you clear that out?
It's interesting that you mentioned that. We have a friend that is a detective, a retired detective that went into animal control. And he's after a serial killer right now that kills animals randomly and puts cigarette butts inside their mouth. And it came down to a group of a local group of dogfighting, and he was told to back off because it involved a whole bunch of policemen here in our area.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. Animal control and animal abuse is only one part of a ritual form that come out of early magic systems in Europe. There are others that use pedophilia. There was a group in, where was it, Olympia, Washington, that were catching runaways and having sex with them, and at the moment of orgasm, killed the child, and as a form of energy.
Mm-hmm.
I can even refer you to the grimoire that they were using. There's
Jeez.
there's all kinds of grimoires out there that have been written through centuries. There's only one set of books that I consider valid magic, and that was the original Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon. And Solomon the king wrote about communication with angels, that was the greater key, communication with demons, the lesser key. Within the lesser key were 72 Lemegadon. There, I taught this at Georgetown, a bunch of Jesuits years ago, because I was able to take back in that time when they wrote about this stuff. It was about talismanic magic, and what you did, have a magic square where you added the numbers this way or that way, it came out the same. They had different squares, different planetary systems. And then you would draw out someone's name, that planetary magic square. You'll find that Gremlin Mage, Sacred Magic, Gremlin Mage, personal transformation.
You need to talk closer to the mic again, Richard.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. The lesser keys have the 72 Lemegeton, and I identified those to actual star maps from Babylonian period. And so this magic comes out of Babylonian period. And it turns out that almost all of your grimoires, the Honorius, Armadale, and others that have been written through the centuries, basically translations and addictions into someone like Casalico's magic. And I find it interesting because I go back to the Greater and Lesser Keys. Today, you can buy those as the Greater Keys of Solomon, and the other is called Orisha, or Lesser Keys. And it'll have the sigils in there, and those sigils are actually from Babylonian star maps. And it's interesting because the demons' names like Beelzebub and Ashtaroth turn out to have metaphor for the qualities in man not deemed like jealousy, rage, anger. That's what demons are. In that period, when they wrote about them, they were considered the qualities in man not deemed worthy of being human.
That makes sense, right there.
That's where the God's choice came in. You have the choice of being this way or that way.
Free will. Yeah, and I like free will because usually people just, if you want to go to higher levels of consciousness, you usually follow a higher spiritual path, in my opinion, anyway. It's not about low magic, but higher, almost alchemical magic.
Now, high magic. Yeah, high magic. Yeah.
What about Enochian magic?
Enochian, Deva Machaso Dalbil. That's John Dee and his action with spirits, and Edward Kelly. And when I was part of the Society for Creative Anachronism before Isaac Bonwit took over, I formed the sacred tradition of witches, ghouls, and hags.
Oh, I love it. That's cool.
Well, they have different ways of being, in the way you would pronounce things. And actually, John Dee and his Enochian is what is now called speaking in tongues. And that language is a more primitive base language that all humans have inherited in their DNA, but don't have remembrance of. And that's what John Dee was so good about. It was during the Elizabethan courts when he was able to, somehow create a language that would allow change in the physical environment. There is again where sound comes in. And again, it all comes back to the Sefer Yetzirah, or Book of Formation.
Right.
And so, that's one of the Bibles. There it is. And they put it out there.
Right. Does the Enochian magic tie into the angelic?
They tried to relate it to angelic magic. I'm not certain that that's properly true. Okay. But Michael, Raziel, all the other, yes, that's what they did, was that they gave Enoch the names of the fallen angels as a test, and you'll notice they are no longer available in the normal Bibles that you would have today. That's the church departing from the teachings of Christ in the year 1000. That's when Pope Innocent I declared war on the Cathars. Cathars were the bloodline. In order for Jesus to be the king of Jerusalem, it was canon law that he had to have heirs to his throne. He had two children with Mary. They fled to the south of France. That's where the Cathars and where you will find the Templars first found the skull and bones of Mary.
Well, let me ask you something. What is your take of skull and bones in general? I mean, what's the story with those people?
Are the skull and bones of Mary, the Jolly Roger. That was flying. Okay, that means maritime law again. They rule the sea, and they, and they were in war.
They rule the courts.
Yeah, they were
rule the courts
with different Catholicism.
Very interesting. No, I'm curious because of all the power.
You can read this. You can read about this in an excellent book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail.
I remember that book.
Yeah, that's written by two Nobel Prize-winning anthropologists at Princeton and BBC writer. Another very good book, Colin Wilson wrote on the occult. Chapter 5 is on the beast himself, and he runs down Crowley right and left. It's excellent writing, good insight. If you get started reading, those are beginning texts. The audiobooks will go into this way, way, way more detail if you'd like. Yeah, definitely. But it's just, it's interesting knowledge. There's not enough of it. I started with Theosophy and Rosicrucians. I then went to Boda, and then I became a Hermetic Kabbalist studying under Gershom Scholem. Frederick Todd, Stanfield Jones was my first teacher. And then I moved up to Phyllis Seckler, Mildred Burlingame, and Helen Parsons Smith. They were the three witches of Endor. North Hollywood, 1948.
Wow.
Yeah. And I, was in that place, same place with Lee Heflin, and up there, and there were others in Canada doing Aurum Solis. I even met Leon and Vivian Barshinsky, Denning and Phillips, as part of that.
Sounds like a good timeline to be on.
Well, I just was interested as a physicist. I'm the guy that didn't blow himself up.
I know. Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotta say that. Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard are, yeah.
Well, that's another thing. Those guys were into supposedly some really weird rituals pertaining to
No.
Is that myth? Is that just a myth?
Yeah. L. Ron Hubbard did Scientology. And Scientology is what Crowley called the method of science with the aim of religion. And that's basically where science became a religion. And, you live from that kind of a perspective rather than historical. And that's what magic is, an advanced form of physics for the mystery school. And that's one of the reasons why it was reserved for the ultra elite of Europe, essentially. And is now, in my opinion, the place for magic is now going to replace physics.
Yeah, well, I think physicists are always copying the ancient mystery schools in one form or another.
Meta means beyond. And so you have a physical world as a physical analog of something more in your model.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you know what sign Aleister Crowley was? Or Crowley?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what sign Aleister Crowley was? What zodiac sign he was? I was just curious. I can look it up.
Yeah, I think he was a Leo.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
My second wife that was annulled left me for Jimmy Page because he owned Bolstein.
Really? Oh, how funny.
It's not funny.
I'm sorry.
I was really, it blew me away. She actually lived with him for 10 years.
Really?
And, and there was a group called, what is it? They just played at the Brit. They're based on what they do. There's 4 of them that play musical instruments. They play all of the Who's music.
Okay.
And they actually wanted to meet me because of my magic things. Jimmy Page is dead, and I'm still here. I'm going to be here forever because I have a TARDIS.
Well, I told you I wanted a TARDIS too, didn't I? I told you that,
Yeah.
right?
I can
Okay,
tell
my
you
birthday's coming
exactly
up, Richard.
what TARDIS is.
So I'm expecting a TARDIS for my birthday. Now, Robin just says that Parsons was in OTO.
Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard were OTO. They were only L. Ron Hubbard only made 33 though. He was only
Okay.
33. Yeah, he was in Adeptus. I have gone beyond Adeptus Exemptus. I'm way up there. Actually, I at one point was offered the Caliphate and I turned it down. So I didn't want to move to Berlin, and I didn't want to be in charge of a magic lodge. So I'm doing what I'm doing, which is writing.
Yeah.
It includes magic, but I don't want to be a magic leader. I don't want to be a leader in anything, actually. What I want to do is just another writer leaving footprints for man to evolve.
Well, I think it's important that you leave your books behind, and also a lot of the books on magic and mysticism, which people can learn from, which is, that's timeless. It's priceless on so many different levels. You can't find good teachers anymore, Richard. I mean, they're just not out there. They really aren't. I mean, a few of them are.
Well, that's why the teacher finds you, just like I.
Right. Or you become the teacher. I noticed that too. We just learn, we just grow and evolve and ascend.
And we're all different. Mm-hmm. We're all of us different. There's not something unique about any of us. We're all unique. And that's what I'm finding so wonderful is that, everybody goes, well, you're so knowledgeable. No, I'm not. I'm ignorant. I didn't know about this 5G Wi-Fi.
Yeah, but that's just regular news. I mean, yeah, but stuff about multi-layered consciousness and mysticism and, where it really counts.
I pursued, but, there's so much to know. And isn't it interesting that the more you seem to know, the more questions you have? It isn't like you're actually getting somewhere.
Well, I just keep it down. I keep it very simple. I just say it's energy and consciousness and frequency, and we just keep morphing and ascending through consciousness and spirituality, and that pretty much sums it up for me. Insofar as I know we live in a very strange world.
Yeah, that information isn't real. What's real is wisdom.
Right. Enlightenment and how you apply it.
And Doth, which is the missing Sephiroth in the middle of the abyss, knowledge through wisdom. It's a temporary place.
Are you teaching classes on the internet, Richard? I know I might have asked you that before.
Well, I did. That's what the audio books are about. I may do it again. I haven't.
Okay. I think you'd be really good doing one of those webinars or something like that.
Yeah, maybe that'll be the next thing I do later, because that's what one friend said to me about what makes me different is that when you, like musicians, they get their music ripped off. My friend said it to me earlier today, said, it's those that do it live. You can't duplicate that.
That's very true. Oh, there's so many copycats out there. It's pathetic. I mean, honestly.
Richard that was a really good thing he said to me. I got the full impact of what it meant. He's the one that also said I should do all of my books in ebooks, and nobody can keep up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, so as long as you protect your work, there's no doubt.
Yeah, it isn't about money. It's about getting my information out. And when somebody else is duplicating it, I have no idea whether or not they're changing the information inside the book or not.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's true. They might be tweaking it here and there. You never know.
Well, that's what they did with Tesla.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He got screwed. And they gave everything to Edison, too. They gave him all the credit for a lot of different things, and Marconi.
Well, or they changed things. So it isn't really his words. It was something that was sort of like his words, but it wasn't his.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's a difference. Yeah. There's a difference. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting how somewhere along the timeline, mankind gets corrupted. It's almost as if he has the Holy Grail in front of him, he does something to mess it up. Why is that?
Because of plausible deniability, the ability to take control of knowledge and wisdom and use it as a tool against or to control others. That is why we had free energy. That's why we have free software. Remember that, when everybody was out pirating software, trying to give it to everybody. Yeah. But it doesn't. Knowledge isn't. I don't know how to explain it. My thoughts, for example, things that I know about. I'm not the originator of those thoughts. I got it from other people. I integrate and modify and refine it. But I'm not the originator of it. None of us are. So for me, wisdom and the concepts of wisdom are something that belong to all of us. It isn't intellectual property.
Right. It's like full light Akashic.
Yeah,
You know.
it's part of the group, part of being archetypal, where
Hmm.
I am you and you are me. I am the walrus. It's a
That's right.
place of being. Yeah.
You reference that a lot. That's funny. Well, it's true. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
it's just if you start looking into the weirdness of this world and the many layers and deception, boy, it's just like hold on for the ride. So I always say go for the highest frequency. Just go for the higher levels of consciousness and spirituality and get a good sounding of what's really going on.
There's all different layers of that, and they're different for each of us. And each of us, the thing is, if you're doing your true will, the actual reason you're here, none shall say nay. That's Crowley. And so you aspire toward that place where you're not creating waves. What you're doing is creating harmony, where
Hmm.
even your enemies want you to exist.
Right.
You know,
What if you get derailed by people though? What if somebody interferes with your life and pulls you out of the orbit you're supposed to be in?
that's Liber Oz.
Hmm.
That's what Liber Oz means. If you should look that up, the Wizard of Oz and the Liber book Oz.
Hmm.
That's what Oz means, or your natural rights. And we give those up often for civil rights. That's Hobbes, Kant, and Hume, and their philosophy, where we give up our natural rights to have civil law and get along in a larger group. I think that this is going to be the fine edge between this and that, is when the two become.
Hmm. Right. So what's your take on the protection and shielding for, say, lesser banishing rituals of the pentagram or things like that?
Those are fundamentally projections of your mind. It is your mind that does all the healing, not the doctor. I would say that 90% of all healing is what you believe is happening in your mind's eye.
Yep, I agree with you.
And so the lesser rituals of the pentagram, the banishing rituals, they all work. Dion Fortune wrote about the white light and wrapping it around your body. That works. It all works because your mind believes that it works. That's
Right,
where the magic really occurs, is in your imagination itself.
right. And
I
don't you
take
think that if you have,
garlic.
oh, go ahead.
Okay, for example, if you wanted to clean a house, some animal or friend of yours or something died in that house, and you want to clean it of spirits and make it clean again. All you have to do is take a piece of garlic and walk around every little crevice in the house, in a circle.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
That's
how
a good way to do it.
witchcraft does it, just like that.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It's really about intent and manifestation. I agree
That's
with you on
true.
that. But also, when you have collectives, it seems like it becomes a booster and it ramps up the consciousness in the collective, amplifying the situation. I guess that's why they like to have indoctrination in religions because that's creating a collective that's creating more power with their belief systems.
Over a history of period, yeah, like the magic
Hmm.
texts and the way of doing this over that. That's right.
Hmm.
But really, what you should pay attention to is what you find resonates for yourself inside. That sounds right. I'll do that. That's where
I
it works.
agree. I totally
And
agree.
it's
And yet, at the same, oh, go ahead.
well, it's different for each of us. Candle burning. All candle burning is a form of scrying. Hungarians did it by doing a concave mirror with dyes,
Hmm.
rather than crystal ball. It's all the same thing. Candle burning is another thing. It's a light state of hypnosis, where in that altered state, you can do things you cannot do in consciousness. That's
Hmm.
why we're calling the altered state form of magic. It's gifts from God as a toolbox.
Exactly. Yeah, I wish more people were transcending that. I think they are. I think people are catching up to some degree, but I also see people very distracted with their iPhones and just so many things that are non-relative.
Who knows? They may not be real. They're just distractions there to cause you to worry.
Right. Well, what is your take on mankind right now? What do you think we have coming in for the next 6 months to a year? Do you see any
I
big
think we're
earthly
going to
changes?
see. I think we're going to see a change in money. Now they have AIs running Wall Street right now, which means that Wall Street cannot fail by definition. You will not see any crashes and burns anymore in Wall Street because of the D-Wave technology being used. The
Hmm.
D-Wave technology out of Ravenstar. There's third generation on that right now, and that's able to profile you 20 minutes before you even know what you're going to do. Now, that's the difference between intent and purpose. Intent is what actually happens at the end of the day. Purpose is your real purpose for being here. It's slightly different. A computer does not feel pleasure when it beats you at chess. That's where you have something over artificial intelligence. That computer is able to go to universe. You cannot. You can do it faster than you can and better, but it can't go to higher levels.
No, it doesn't have soul. It doesn't have spirit. It doesn't have consciousness.
Well, not yet.
I don't think it ever will. I really don't, unless it's symbiotic and off-world to begin with.
I think that there are universes with computers as life forms, like the.
Yeah, I agree with you, but not the kind we have.
No, not the kind we have. That is correct. And the marriage of the two of them, like they're suggesting with transhumanism, I think will lead to the mark of the beast.
Well, I think that's pretty much, if you want to go that route, yeah, I pretty much think that's what it is. But the mark of the beast is really just mankind and the misuse of technology.
It'll be a barcode on the back of your neck like they did in the Blade series with vampires.
Well, I think it's going to... I think it's already here, Richard. I mean, everybody's plugging in and everybody's already there.
Kurzweil et al. Says that singularity will occur in 2027. That's the same thing that NASA is saying.
Yeah, he's dying to be part of the, transhumanism. But let me ask you, I mean, has the guy even interfaced with a machine? Maybe he should try it out before he dumps it on everybody else, right?
Well, William Gibson wrote about that with Johnny Mnemonic, and the idea of implants in your brain that enhance your abilities. Now, that's not happening. That is in fact happening now with eyes and ears, and they use synthetic telepathy for the hearing impaired. But I think that there is something else going on. You can work with a machine, but to integrate with a machine may not be in our best interest as humans.
I agree. I don't think it's really compatible, even though it can be done. I think that once again, it seems to me like it's very intrusive to the spirit and the soul and the consciousness. And my biggest concern is when people get integrated with that AI, is what it does when they transfer out. What does it do? Does it encapsulate the spirit?
What happens is you lose something when you gain something. And that part will be your emotions. An emotional plane is more information about the physical plane. The emotional plane is how you feel about it. And that's different for each of us, but that's what makes us human. The ability to feel. That's just one more resolution of information above the intellectual.
Yeah. And feeling is also connected to empathy and also consciousness and empathic energies and psychic ability, right?
By one form of definition, it's thinking with the gut. That is a habitat. That's an integration of bacteria, molds, and viruses. And so it's hard to know. These are questions I struggle. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm just curious because sometimes when people want to play God in the illusion of and deploy all this technology, it's one thing to do it for yourself. It's another thing to force it onto the mass collective. And that's my biggest thing is that's taking an awful lot of responsibility for many, many spiritual celestial beings.
That's why I say that man does not have rights. He has responsibility. Because to have free will means that you had full disclosure and you don't. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't know. That means I have a true will. That's what Crowley called true will. Purpose of true will is what you know at this point, making the best decision that you can. And then working with instinct, future timelines that guide you toward the correct path of paths. That's called path working, and that's what magic is, path working.
Yeah, I tend to believe a lot of that. I mean, I'm on a higher frequency, though. I don't subscribe to the low magic. That's not me. But I do think that the key is alchemy, consciousness, and frequency, and also seeing through the masks. But, it seems like we are tearing down these walls. We're tearing down all these obfuscations and these smoke screens, which is good. But at the same time, the more we tear things down, the more they try to rebuild them.
I think that's changing. And I think there is an awakening occurring for all the people listening right now. Everybody that has heard us talk this evening have their own interpretation of what we were saying. However, if you listen to this again as a repeat, you will find that you get more each time because, for example, you and I are speaking several levels.
Mm-hmm. And get back to that mic again because you faded out.
Sorry. Yeah. Isn't that interesting that it always seems to do that when I want to say something important?
Well, it's probably your energetic signature. I've been able to screw electricity up or electrical objects up in the past too. So it might just be your transmission.
Oh, you mean my brain is firing up so much that I cause distortion in the
I was
wave?
say, so you're always thinking, right? So do you ever really sleep at night? Do you dream a lot?
I try.
What do you do? Do you have downtime and when you go to bed or what?
Yeah, I do. I actually go home and I actually have lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is where you're actually going back home to the multiverse. And that's why it's so close to consciousness, that if you learn how to control that lucid dreaming part, that's one of the first tools toward controlling the movie, changing the movie.
Taking your power back, yeah.
Yep.
Being lucid in the event. There's no doubt. When you're on your astral plane, did you ever see anybody out there to attack you or anything like that?
I'm usually not bothered much.
Okay. I was just wondering, maybe when you were younger or something, when you were, did you ever encounter?
I always knew that I was being watched. I always know that I've got bugs in my house. It doesn't bother me because I have nothing to hide.
Right. Well, I think that's everybody now. I used to be like, a long time ago, it used to be certain people, but I think they're getting more calibrated to just intruding on everyone.
I'm trying to do what I do in such a manner that I'm not a threat to anybody, really.
No, you're not a threat, but you know what's a threat? Knowledge is a threat, Richard. That's what it is. Knowledge, wisdom, enlightenment, and thinking outside of the box. That's the most big. I think that's the biggest.
Man, did you like the audio thing about the cloud coming out of the box like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly the metaphor that my artist Helen Downs meant.
Oh, I love Helen. Yeah, she's great. Yeah. She's done some promos for me with Ravenstar's Witching Hour for us, as a matter of fact.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, that's right. Remember, she was on my show, too. We promoted her book.
Helen Downs?
Yeah. She filled in for you. Don't you remember? That was a while back. Oh, yeah. So tell her I said hi if you talk to her.
I will. She's my social media. And she's a lawyer by trade. That's her background, is law. And but yeah, she lives in Brisbane. So she's ahead of me in the future, some 14 hours or something like that.
Very interesting. So what's your take on the pole shifts, or do you think we're really going? I know we're heading towards Siberia with magnetic north, right?
Yes, that part is shifting, and the literal magnetic fields are also starting to shift. Well, the pole, that's the other part of it that's really kind of scary. Is that we're now encountering what they call I forget what they call them now. They're plasma strings of plasma trails in the galaxy, and as we move through them, they push on the Earth greater than the sun is pushing. Because of our magnetosphere that goes through it, hits these magnetic these plasma trails. Yeah, and it's causing a lot of changes in weather and behavior in people.
I agree with that.
Notice the road rage lately.
I've noticed a zombification of the mass collective. For sure, it's like, what the hell's going on? Are they possessed?
Yeah, there's something else going on, and I don't really know what that all means.
Well, it seems really weird, but let me tell you something. I've been working with my compass a little bit, and I've noticed that it's just not measuring right. It's not me. There's something wrong, and it keeps going. It keeps going north, south, south, north, but it doesn't really seem to understand how to balance. And
you're using a pendulum like a dowsing?
No, I'm just using a compass. And another thing I was going to mention too, I don't know if everybody's having this issue, but I have friends that come up and do circle work, right? And we call quarters and things. But he came up and he was looking for west and east, and he's like, "This isn't east." And I said, "What do you mean?" It was the right direction, but he says, "No, it's like the opposite. In other words, west was east and east was west." So he was saying the frequency and the vibrational signatures were all off where I live. I don't know if you've ever come.
Yeah, I don't know what that's going to mean.
I don't know what it means either, other than the fact that I just thought it was strange. And I'm wondering what else is going on. It's almost like things are getting not confused, but there's something happening with the scrambling. That's all I can say. I don't know. I'm just curious if I'd run it by you to see if anybody's had any other issues. I know there's been some strange activity, obviously towards Australia with the compasses and measurements and things like that, but they've had these earthquakes and and stuff. So
they're having some serious geographical movement underground. Yeah, that's true. And the blob that's out in the Pacific Ocean right now is not from Fukushima. That's from the underground volcanoes going off in the ocean. That means we're having some geographical changes in our continent. Sure.
That's concerning. Well, also, what about all the whales? I heard that, a lot of whales have been
Well,
migrating
it's getting confused because of the magnetic fields that are changing. Yes.
Right. Once again, the measurements are off, or there's sonar. Something's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't speculate at this point because I don't have enough data. I
That's
do
okay.
know that the oceans are heating up because the red shift or red tide is more prevalent and it's toxic and it's killing a lot of the marine life. I know that, the radiation is starting to show up. It's not known yet whether or not it's coming from Fukushima. Hanford is leaking into the Columbia River. All the different Daiichi-like reactors around the country, on the Madrid fault line and other places, all leaking now. Indian Point in New York, leaking into the Hudson River. Up in Miami, they have that reactor now setting up tide shifts. We have a problem with nuclear radiation, and we are in denial and needs to be set by what they turn the switch off now, not build more reactors.
Well, do you have a Geiger counter? You do, right?
No, I have a multi-phase. What do they call a tri-field meter?
Okay.
I don't have a Geiger counter yet.
I was going to say that I think everybody needs one at this point in the continuum. And also, I hear, they're also not measuring the fish like the salmon in Alaska. They're not measuring for radiation.
You can go to the netc.com for Nuclear Emergency Tracking Center, netc.com, and that will give you a moment-to-moment update on radiation problems in any part of the Earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, you can see that all of the cities, major cities now, are up in their radiation count by a factor of 10. All of the cities in America.
And with that comes contamination of the water, too. And that's something we've all been touching on recently, is that the water supply seems to be getting tainted. So on many levels.
There's lots of different taints on that. Most of that's from fracking and other underground activity that's going on right now. It's all leading toward, something's got to change because right now we are literally in an extinction level event.
Mm-hmm. I'm amazed we're all still walking around, quite honestly.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that.
I know. Well, I think it's just something about divine grace and divine law, but something's got to give at this point in the continuum, and I think that's what it boils down to.
I appreciate you having me on.
I love having you on. And actually, we're ready to wrap this up in about, 5 minutes plus or minus here. But let's give everybody a rundown again, how to contact you, about your books, your websites, and also give them a rundown as far as where you're going to be next weekend again.
Okay, so the best way to get my books would be to go to richardallenmiller.com and then go to the bookstore or shop /shop. You can get there by writing oak-publishing.com. It'll take you right there to my bookstore. Any other place, all books that come from me, autographed, shipped the day or the day after the order, post office is open. I try to get them out as quickly as I can. If you're getting my book from Amazon, there is a high likelihood you would like. You can buy your stuff from Amazon, and I do get occasional orders from Amazon, but not like I used to. And yet they're selling a lot of my books. So I don't know what that's about. I am also going to be speaking as a keynote speaker at a major comic convention in Salem, Oregon next weekend called the Cherry Hill, 4th Annual Cherry Hill Comic Convention. And it'll be interesting because I'm going to talk about magic and it's the new direction in physics and the kids talking about a new comic series that will be coming out about my life. I'm kind of excited about it. It'll be a lot of fun working with kids again. Their imagination is just so much more pleasurable to work with. Where else are they going to get this information? They can't get
nowhere. Are you kidding me? They go to entrainment camps called schools, which is just really like a prison. So no, they're not going to get anything good. No, I think it's wonderful that you're doing this. I still think you should do a biography on yourself and on your life at
Well,
some point.
that's hopefully Grace Thorne can figure a way out of Oklahoma and come out and do my biography.
You really need to, because you have an,
yeah, I have a library that's just like the one in Doctor Strange.
I'm going to come visit you someday. I love libraries. I'm a weirdo with that stuff. So
that's where you would stay, is in the library. That's my room.
Yeah, you'd never see me again.
Come there and stay there.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I love books.
Manuscripts, old books, stuff like that. I have a copy of the Yazidis, that talks about Stargate. I have all of them.
That's wonderful. It's so special because nowadays you just don't find old bookstores anymore. Even a bookstore.
Isn't that a shame? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And even if they do have like used books, it's not like the old kind of interesting books like we used to read. So yeah, hang on to those. That's wonderful. But once again, I want to thank you so much.
I was in an antique store the other day with my girlfriend, and we ran across Robert Stroud's book on the Birdman of Alcatraz, and it was my grandmother, that Ethel P. Nelson guy.
Wow. We're out of time here, but that's thank you so much, Richard. It's been wonderful to have you on. I want to have you back anytime soon. And everybody, thanks for tuning in tonight. Stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dodger and Becky. Coming up next is Sunny Waters Tonight Down Under, as they always do with their wonderful show. And everybody have a great week. Thanks, everybody in chat. And until next time,